Welcome to the Sage Family Podcast, where we explore natural homeschooling, gentle parenting,
simple living, and family adventure.
I'm Rachel Rainbolt, the Sage Family Mentor, coming to you from an island in the Pacific Northwest, where I live wild and free in connection with my hilarious husband and 3 growing sailors in our fixer-upper on the beach. So join us around the campfire and let's get living the family life of our dreams. This is episode 92, and today I'm here with Karen Young talking about anxiety. Karen is the founder of Hey Sigmund, an internationally popular online resource that provides contemporary, research-driven information on anxiety. She's also the author of 4 books, including the best-selling Hey Warrior, which creatively assists children to understand and manage anxiety. If you are working on improving your relationship with your warrior or your child's warrior, then join us in the Sage Family Village, where we meet each other in this work with unconditional love and values-aligned support, the emotional uplift, but also the practical help you need. I've also been sharing some sneak peeks of the upcoming Sage Mothering course inside the village, which is super fun. So come on in with us at sagefamily.com/village. I found Karen's website many years ago, and it helped me understand my child and anxiety in a whole new way. I had been utilizing externalization and personification in my work with children and families through narrative therapy, and her conceptualization of anxiety as our warrior was just brilliant. Her identification of anxiety and nervous system activation as the core of a lot of explosive behavior was brilliant. Her book, Hey Warrior, that explains anxiety to children is brilliant. So I just know you all are going to love her and her work as much as I do. So welcome to the show, Karen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on to talk about this.
Will you introduce yourself and share a bit about who you are and what you're passionate about?
Yeah. So I started as a psychologist a long time ago, decades ago, just in private practice. I really quickly came to realize, because I worked with a lot of kids and teens and families, that I would have these kids for 45 minutes. And even though that was a really important 45 minutes in terms of supporting kids and helping to, nurture their growth, the real healing happened when they were with their important adults, so parents, teachers. And I ended up, over the course of many, many years, I ended up in this work, which is what I do now, which is supporting parents and all the important adults in children's lives to strengthen them, giving them the information we know. Because it's parents, teachers, grandparents who are at the front line when things like anxiety hits, and you have the relationship with them, you have the trust. So if we can support you to support your kids, then we've got a really beautiful wraparound there.
Yeah, completely agree. When I first started off working with really young kids, like in early childcare education centers and through early Head Start and different things like that, basically where I kept working with like the kid just, by themselves, like in the silo. And I went to graduate school to become a marital and family therapist, sort of in that same vein of like, there's something else that I can't quite like reach the whole picture here, like as powerfully as I can when, now I've got like a whole family system, or now I'm working with a parent, and then like, all of that good, juicy stuff like comes through them, like where the bond and the connection is. And it was just really, really powerful. So I love that your experience mirrored some of that. Okay, so let's talk about presentation. We often think of a shy or clingy child when we think of anxiety, but fight is also part of the sympathetic nervous system state. So what are some ways anxiety shows up that we may not initially recognize as anxiety?
Yeah. So there's a few different ways. If you think of anxiety as fight, flight, freeze. So we might see fight behaviors. anger, tantrums, aggression, irritation, frustration. They're all fight behaviors. So anger, tantrums, that is a really normal response to anxiety. It's the fight part of the fight or flight response. And we have to remember anger never exists on its own. It actually exists with other more vulnerable emotions to hold them down. So what we have to say when we see an angry child is, if we could take away that anger right now, which softer feeling would be left in place? And I'd bet that most of the time it's going to be anxiety. We have to remember, with anxiety, it doesn't mean that there is a reason or a tangible, visible reason for their anxiety. It's about what the brain perceives. So the brain might perceive some sort of potential for relationship threat, for disconnection, for humiliation, judgment. Doesn't mean they're going to be. It's about what the brain perceives. Or it could be physical. Their bodies are just tired or hungry, or that can also trigger a threat response. We might also see a flight response. So that's when the brain organizes to get our bodies ready to escape the threat, to race, to run away from the threat, to turn away from the threat. So this can look like avoidance is the biggest one, clinginess, procrastination, perfectionism is just a form of high-functioning anxiety. If we see kids turning to a lot of addictive behaviours, just scrolling endlessly through social media, gaming, at the expense of the other things they need to do, that can be a sign of anxiety. We might see sleeplessness, and that's because the brain's just really busy at that time. Or we might see freeze behaviours. This is nervous system shutdown. So this is when kids, they just pull away, they turn away. It can look like a quiet defiance. So it can look like they're just ignoring us, but actually in that space, when it's driven by anxiety, so they can't hear us. So their brains and bodies are just getting them ready to completely shut down from any potential of really remembering the threat and what's happening.
It's so helpful to understand, because I think it helps a lot of parents access more like empathy and to come at support in a way that's more effective, when they recognize it as anxiety as opposed to other more like they have control of it and, sort of blamey kind of things. It's hard to come alongside as an ally from that place.
What I'd say to that is, think about the times we have big feelings, right? It might be because we've walked in, the house looks like a crime scene. It didn't look like that this morning. It just tips us over, right? It might be that we're just exhausted or we're hungry, and we end up kicking off and saying or doing things we wouldn't ordinarily do. So we have these big feelings. From the outside, someone would look at us and go, well, that is an overreaction to the situation. But actually what's going on inside is the same thing that's going on for our kiddos and our young people, which is there is something here that the brain feels uneasy with. There's something that doesn't feel okay for the brain. We have to remember the amygdala, the part of the brain that drives fight or flight responses, it's primitive, it's primal. There's nothing polished about it. There's no grace about it. It just acts. It's a doer, not a thinker. And it's the same for us as well. So when we see big feelings, and big behavior always comes from big feelings, there'll always be a reason or a need that hasn't been met. It doesn't mean the behavior they're taking is a valid, adorable way to meet the need, but it isn't for us either. Often we behave in ways which aren't very adorable because there's something we're not getting. It might be that we don't feel heard, we don't feel seen, we keep saying the same stuff over and over, nobody's listening. It might be that we're exhausted, but we've still got a whole afternoon of stuff we've got to get through. None of that is true threat, but the brain will register it as threat. And big feelings actually happen as a way to bring people closer, as a way to recruit support. And it doesn't always feel like it when our kiddos are using big behavior, big actions, spicy words to get us to back off. But that's actually why we humans have big feelings. It's the same for us. We need to be noticed in that space. So it is not a bad child. It is not bad parenting. It's a brain that isn't feeling okay right now and needs to be brought back to felt safety. And we have to remember that with safety, it's felt relational safety, connected to you, adored by you, loved by you, not judged or shamed or humiliated by you. and no potential for that. And physical safety, fed, watered, not too tired, not in pain, our sensory needs are taken care of. That's what it's a sign of. The tricky thing is figuring out exactly what they might need in that moment.
Yeah. When we're in connection with a dysregulated nervous system, our neuroception can sound the threat alarm too, which makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. So our number one job to help our children is to regulate our own nervous systems. What have you found helpful for guiding our nervous systems back to safety?
The first thing is, if we can, because we have to remember when there's a child in distress, and distress might look like angry, sad, wanting to avoid something, just any big feelings. It's going to raise distress in us because we're their important person. So fight or flight in a child will raise fight or flight in the adult who loves them every single time. And that's evolutionary. The idea of that is because our brain says, well, there's a kid in trouble here. There's a young one in trouble. You might need to fight for this child or flee with this child. So it raises fight or flight fuel in us. It raises fight or flight in us. Now, as they're important adults looking at the situation, we're going, well, they're not in danger. Just because they're not getting what they need, or because they're not getting a go, or because we don't even know why, doesn't mean they're in danger. So that fight or flight can sometimes transfer into fight with. We get annoyed, we get irritated, we get angry, or the wish to flee from, I just don't want to deal with this now. Can you just give me some space? That's really normal. That's why parenting's hard. It's a hard gig. It's our physiology as well. So when we're doing that stuff, our brain is registering that something is up. So if we can recognize that, if we can also look at them and say, this is not a bad child. I am not a bad parent. This is a great kid who right now is struggling. And my job here is to just be that anchor presence. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to fix it. Calm your own nervous system by just taking a strong, steady breath and breathe and be with. So just reminding yourself that you don't need to fix what they're feeling. You don't need to fix this. We need to hold a boundary, but we can do that by adding in warmth to our leadership. We don't just want to hold the boundary and have it feel tough and hard. Wherever we can, we want to add in that warmth. I know this is big. I'm right here. No, I'm not going to let you do this. It's okay to be angry. No, I know it's not. I know you know it's not okay to talk to me like this. And just creating that space for them to come back to calm when they need to. So the biggest thing, that was a long answer to a short question. The biggest thing I'd say is let go of the need to fix it in that moment. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to fix it.
Yes, I sometimes will tell people less doing, more being.
That's it.
Just be with them, and less on the solution focused, investigative, action oriented fixing. And that can come and that can be helpful sometimes. But first, when we're in that dysregulation, we just have to connect and cue safety. So I mentioned in the polyvagal theory episode that co-regulation is probably the number one thing I do as a mother, and it's work that is largely invisible if you don't know to look for it. So it feels really important for me to shine a light on that co-regulation piece. How can we support a child through co-regulation whose warrior is standing really tall?
So the first thing is to understand we can't teach self-regulation. The whole point of big feelings is to call us in so we can co-regulate. That is the point. So sometimes when there's big feelings, we go, oh, we've got to fix them. We've got to stop the big feelings. But actually the work is co-regulation. It's like the brain saying, hey, now would be a good time to show me how this co-regulation thing works. In that moment, the most important thing is calming our nervous system so we can recalibrate theirs. We take a strong, steady breath. We breathe and be with. Sometimes you might need to take a pause. So if they're safe, you might need to say, all right, my darling, I'm just getting a drink of water. I'll be back in a minute. It's okay to do that. And we want to model that for them. We go out, we take a minute, breathe, come back. We calm our nervous system. Then we wait. We need to let the feeling brain, their warrior, the amygdala, know that it's done its job. Support is here. I'm right here. We do that through validation. But with validation, we don't need to get caught up in the words. And we want to make sure when we validate, it's a full body validation and it's believable. So really what validation is, first of all, we can't validate unless we can empathize with them, which means seeing this the way they see it. Doesn't mean agreeing with them. It means seeing this the way they see it. They might see it as unfair. They might see it as terrible or scary or big or annoying, whatever it is. We see it through their window. And we validate. Yeah, this is big. I get it. I can see how angry you are at me. If the words are annoying them, let the words go. We just breathe and be with. But what we want to do is match their energy as much as we can so that they know we're feeling it. That might just be, I know, I get it. I'm right here. Maybe if they're really in a more compressed state, a squash state, that's just slow, gentle movements, not too many words, and just matching their slow, gentle energy with it. I know. Yeah, I get it. That sort of thing. It's really no different to if we were telling a friend something awful that happened, if we were dysregulated, this happened and then they did this and then they did this. It's not going to work if a friend just comes in with the words of validation without having the energy behind it. If a friend just comes in and says, I can see how upset you are about this, it's not going to land the way we need it to. Probably what our friend is going to do is just use vocalizations, maybe non-verbals. They did what? You serious? No. Can't believe? No, that is right. They're just going to be with us. We just be with us. And they're just letting them know, they're just letting us know that they're right beside us. That's all we do. So we breathe and be with. And we wait for the storm to pass. Think of it like an emotional storm. What they're looking for is an anchor. Anchors just stay attached and grounded. They don't try and figure anything out or fix it, or try and make sense of it. So we just stay attached and grounded. We might need to hold a boundary during that dysregulation, but we add in warmth. So it's warmth and leadership. But really, it's just about trying to provide a calm nervous system as much as we can in ourselves, so that we can invite theirs back to home. In that moment, if they want to move with you, go outside with you, anything with rhythm, might be tapping their back, rubbing their back. But if they're not interested in any of that, it's really breathe and be with. Let them know you see them, breathe and be with. We wait for the storm to pass. Then we do the work. But the work doesn't happen in the midst of a storm. So it's not about letting big behavior go. It's not about giving them a free pass on big behavior. What we're doing is maintaining the connection, the attachment. We can't leave them if we aren't attached. We bring that brain back to safety. Then we have full access to that thinking brain. This is when the things we teach are really going to land in a really meaningful, enduring way. What happened? What did I do that helped? What did I do that didn't help? You are such a great kid. I know you know, talking to me like that's not okay. How can we put this right? What are we going to do differently next time? So that's all the conversation. But there's a time for that, not in the midst of a storm. And it might be hours after the storm. There's no hurry for it.
Yeah, because when our child is dysregulated, we may have to hold some boundaries to keep everyone and everything safe. Like you said, like sometimes there's boundary holding that is in there. Yeah. So how can we hold boundaries for safety while holding space for big feelings? Because sometimes that can be a big challenge, especially with multiple children. Absolutely. And, it's like the boundaries for safety, like, okay, in my experience, siblings hurting siblings is something that is not talked about a lot and not addressed as openly, and parents tend not to see it as problematic, or they'll sort of allow more, like they would never hit their child, but they'll allow more of it among siblings. And for me, it feels like such an important component of creating safety in your home and in your family. And you're not going to get there like preemptively 100% of the time, of course, but that as soon as you are aware of what's happening, that you can jump in with that boundary, with that calm, regulated, nervous system state as much as possible, but holding that boundary, sort of like you were saying, like, oh, I can't let you hit your sister, so I'm going to sit right in front of you. Tell me everything, what's happening, whatever it is. But that boundary piece, sometimes in gentle parenting, like we miss that, and it feels really important.
Yeah. Boundaries are really critical because it's going to, if kids don't have boundaries, it feels really unsafe. So we're going to see bigger behavior, not just for them, but for the other kids in their presence. So boundaries, this is sometimes where I think attachment and gentle parenting can be misunderstood. It was never meant to mean no boundaries.
Yeah.
It was never meant to mean that our children won't feel the distress of those collisions. What's important is when there is those boundary collisions, we respond in a way which is loving and warm and strong. So it's two things. It's leadership and warmth. It's strength and softness at the same time. So we hold that. Boundaries are what we're going to do when the rules are broken. So the way to think of it is the reason we hold a boundary is because we need to maintain that strong leadership presence. Boundary is what I'm going to do. So boundary is focusing on my behavior. We don't want to drop a boundary. If we drop a boundary in response to their behavior, that effectively puts them in the position of leadership, which is not going to feel safe for them. So we're the ones in charge of what's happening here. Now, the way we hold a boundary lovingly and gently is think about it as adding in warmth to our leadership. No, I am not going to let you. I'm not going to let you. That's a leadership term. I'm not going to let you. Think of it. I'm not going to let you do anything that's going to hurt you. I'm not going to let you do anything that's going to get you into trouble. I'm not going to let you do anything that is going to compromise your relationship with the people around you. So it's actually a really loving thing to do. If we don't have those boundaries, we're basically exposing them to situations where they are going to compromise themselves. They are going to compromise their relationships with other people. So that's why they need us to take leadership. But we add a warmth to that. No, I'm not going to let you hurt your sister, or I'm not going to let you hurt her body or his body. And wherever we can, we move one of them out of the way if we can't use it, whether it's the person hitting or the other person. And as much as we can, we let both of them know that we see what's happening and we're onto it. It might mean we need to say to one child, I can see what's happening here. I'll be right back. I'll be right back while you're dealing with the other child. If you can, you might have a hand on both of them so they can feel you. But that strong presence is really critical, but we can do it lovingly. I'm not going to let you do this. I know it's okay to be angry. No, I am not going to let you hit your brother, or I'm not going to let you hit your sister. I know I'm right here. If that's, and we do the best we can in the moment. When there's one of us, we do the very best we can. We want to avoid raised voices, raised angry voices, shame, judgment, anything that can compromise their felt sense of relational safety. We want to avoid that. We might offer them an acceptable option. Do you want me to stay with you, or do you want some space? And it's okay. That's very different to time out or putting them in a situation, sending them away. We are giving them an option here. If they want to stay with us, they stay. Some kids don't want us around. They say, just go away, leave me alone. It's okay for us to say, all right, I can see you need space. I'm right here. I'll check back on you in 5 minutes. So we're still respecting, because we have to respect their boundaries in that as well. But also staying in emotional proximity. We're right here. We're not disconnecting. We're right here. We don't judge you. We're not shaming you. We judge your behavior, but we're right here for you. So just, if you can think of it as adding in warmth to the leadership. And again, the conversation, the repair, that will happen after the storm. So we still want the repair, and the repair is really important because they need the opportunity to feel the good in themselves, but it has to be connected to whatever they've done. I know you are such a great brother, or you are such a great sister. I know you know it's not okay to treat your brother or sister like this? How are we going to put this right? Do you need my help with that? And we support them in that repair.
Yes. Okay. So for the boundaries piece, I think like it really builds trust every time I can step in when my kid feels out of control and say, I'll help keep everyone safe while this feeling's here with us. Like, tell me all about it. I can sit with this feeling with you. Like it builds so much trust. And there's this something that really makes anxiety grow so much bigger, as I'm sure you know, is like the anxiety about the anxiety. Like if we like panic when the feelings come. And so if you have a grown-up who communicates like, I'm not afraid of this feeling when it shows up, like you internalize that, like, oh, this isn't something to be afraid of. Like everybody can be safe when this feeling shows up. And, until my brain is developed enough to do that on my own, like my grown-up is helping me there. So it's not something that we need to fear. And the repair, it's funny because that's something that's a really important part of this process to me. It feels like closing the loop. And like without that, like closing of the loop, the conflict and the feelings seem to just keep like simmering, and they'll keep like popping up and popping. Like it's like the same thing doesn't ever fully get resolved until we close it with a repair. And the repair doesn't have to look like what a repair would look like from my grown-up perspective, but it's that like, okay, I have two siblings who are having a hard time figuring out how to do this. Like, how could we move through this? Like, how could we like replay a better way? Or what could we do to reset things so that we can try again? Or, it might be like, oh, they threw a glass of water on the floor and now there's water on the floor. Like, what are we going to do? Like, no one can use the living room, it's so slippy and, or whatever it is. Like, so it, like sometimes it could be, and I'm sorry if that feels like authentic for the kids, but it can look like such a myriad of things. My kids would often run and get the other person like a stuffed animal, even though that was like totally irrelevant, or like a Band-Aid, even though like no one needed a Band-Aid. Like, but they would say like, how can I help? How can I make it right? Like, what can I do to help you feel safe so we can play with the blocks together some more? And they might say like, oh, I need a pillow so I can be more comfortable, and the kid would go get them a pillow, like whatever it is, like close that loop. So everyone feels like, okay, like we're back to like a reset state.
And I think too, the other way to think about repair is the repair is also important for the child who has hurt the other child, because they know what they've done isn't okay. They didn't do it because they're a bad kid. They did it because their nervous systems were out of their control in that moment. We're going to it takes years and years and years to drive nervous systems, a long, long time. We don't even, as adults, always have full control. We'll do or say things we don't need. So what we want to do is give them the opportunity to feel the good in themselves and actually recognize that that was a moment where they struggled. We're going to work on doing this better. But you were actually a really great kid regardless of that. Your behavior wasn't so shiny, but you are a really great kid. So we need to give them the opportunity to show the other person, to actually feel themselves that they are who we know they are. They're a great kid who sometimes does things that aren't okay, and they're a great kid no matter what. So that's where the repair is really important for them as well, not just their relationships, but for their sense of who they are.
Yeah, it feels like a reset for them. Like I'm not moving forward at a deficit in terms of self-esteem and confidence and identity. Like it feels like, okay, I've repaired that. Like I've learned something from that. I've practiced a different way to respond to it. I've cleaned up the mess or, fixed the damage or whatever it is. Like now I can move forward, not from a place of, identity debt. Like that's almost like what it looks like when I see it playing out with kids. But like, no, I'm like starting again from a place of wholeness.
Well, we don't want them to bring that bad thing into their identity. So kids tend to, they can easily bring how I feel and turn it into who I am. So when they feel bad a lot of the time, that can translate into I am bad. I'm a bad person. We don't want that to happen. So we have to separate them from their behavior whenever we can, and give them the opportunity to correct whatever they've done. And we say to them what might happen next time, because it's okay to feel annoyed. It's okay to feel angry. There's no bad feelings. But what might be another thing you can do next time? Doesn't mean they're going to be able to do it, because that takes deliberate effort and that deliberate decision making, and they just don't have the capacity. That's a thinking brain thing. They might not have be able to do that for a long, long time. And that's okay, but we're still giving them the opportunity to bring that in where we can.
Yeah. So how can we frame like anxiety for our kids in a way that leaves them feeling like integrated and empowered? Like, are there any like tools or metaphors or perspectives? Like I mentioned, the externalization and the personification of the amygdala as our warrior.
Yeah.
Like, how can we teach our kids about like invite them to have a different kind of relationship with anxiety than most of us adults, were gifted with?
Yeah. So I think we have to give them the science. We have to give them the neuroscience. This is going to strip any shame. It's going to it's going to make it easier for them to turn and face and own their behavior. When they feel in shame, they're more likely to defend their behavior. We want them to turn and face. So we really have to turn these feelings into allies and friends. We want to turn anxiety into an ally. And wherever we talk about anxiety, we can use it to talk about aggression or anger as well, because it comes from the same part of the brain, the amygdala.
Or fear.
My go-to is anxiety comes from a part of your brain called the amygdala. It's like a fierce warrior there to protect you. We all have an amygdala. And this is why I wrote Hey Warrior. I believe it's such a critical part of helping kids understand why they feel the way they do, why they get angry, why they get anxious. Where we want them to get to is imagining sitting with their amygdala, calming it down, talking to it, loving it. And this is why we don't want to present anxiety as a bully. We don't want to present aggression as a bully brain, because we want them to sit with it. We want them to be able to manage it, move with it. We're never going to get rid of angry feelings. We don't want to. We're never going to get rid of anxiety. We don't want to. We want the full spectrum of feelings to be accessible to them. What we want is for them to be able to be with those feelings and respond in healthier ways. But for that to happen, we have to make these feelings be withable or live withable. So we don't want to present them as bullies or as something they need to move away from or be scared of. These are feelings we all get. They're here to look after you. They're there to take care of you. Your amygdala is here to look after you. What does your amygdala need to hear to feel safe again? What does it need to hear to feel calm? What's it getting upset about? So we can pull it out of themselves, help them understand what the amygdala does when it gets upset, why their bodies might feel enraged or busy or fighty or bitey. And this is why I wrote Hey Warrior, because we need to give them the information, then they can use it wisely. If we don't give them the information, they'll put their own story to the feeling, which is, I'm just a bad kid, or
I'm broken.
My feelings are bad. I'm broken.
Yeah, I'm wrong.
I can't cope with this. I just can't do the things that grown-ups need me to do. And we know that's not how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for so many people, particularly in our generation and older, like we had no idea what this was, and almost like thought we were the only person who ever felt this way.
Absolutely.
We didn't know what was happening or why, and no one talked about it, and it wasn't normalized. And I think thankfully the cultural tide has shifted so much away from that. And one of the most important places of work with that shift is with our children, like, and the evidence supports that like psychoeducational approach of telling, like explaining to them what's going on in a way that they can understand, and empowering them with, hey, you can actually make friends with this part of your brain. Yeah. And you can sit with this part and invite it in and pull up a chair for it and shift your relationship with it, as a friend as opposed to an enemy. And that is incredibly empowering.
The way I explain it is it's like walking around in a dark room full of furniture. So when big feelings happen, it's like they're walking around a dark room full of furniture. It feels scary because they don't know what's in front. They're going to bump and bruise and scrape. And eventually we just stop. We don't want them to just stop feeling. We don't want them to just turn the dial down. Because the problem is you turn the dial down on some feelings, you turn the dial down on other feelings that you don't want to squash. What we want to do is turn the light on. So we don't need to get rid of all the stuff in that cluttered room. We just want to turn the light on. When we turn the light on, we can see the things for what they are. We can see the stuff. We can navigate a way around it. That stuff is still there, but we can now move with it or through it as we need to. That's what we're doing with big feelings, with anxiety, with anger. The research tells us this. When we understand why we feel the way we do, when we understand why our bodies feel the way they do, we don't have to be scared of it anymore. We can turn and face. We can be with it without getting scared by it, and we know anxiety drives anxiety about the anxiety because it doesn't feel okay. Same with anger. We need to make sense of it for them whenever we can. This will be the first generation of kids that will have neuroscience as part of their everyday. And I think parents in this generation are so extraordinary because we're turning a big boat here and we're the ones that are turning the ship. If we were brought up with having our feelings squashed or pushed down, or if there was only space for good, convenient feelings, we might be people who feel like we need to be convenient for others. Our kids' big feelings are going to feel tricky for us. That's really normal. But what we also have to do is look at the work we're doing here, and it is huge work. We're not going to get it right all the time, and we don't need to. But anything we can do to support them with those big feelings so they don't feel so big. It's like when they're in big feelings, they're calling us in to say, hey, this emotional load, it's really big. Can you help carry it for me? And that's what we do when we co-regulate. We are holding some of that big emotional energy. We're sitting with them in that big emotional storm so they don't have to do it on their own. That's going to feel tricky, especially if we never had anyone co-regulate with us or make our big feelings okay. But we've got plenty of time. We've got plenty of time to get it right. And the more we can respond to our kids intentionally and mindfully and with full awareness, even if we don't get it right all the time, they're lucky kids because we're starting to turn that ship around for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And like this intergenerational transmission of these things, it's like a relay race, and we all, we go as far as we can on our leg, right? And for our children, it's really motivating for me to think about the fact that, when I was starting off and my firstborn would have big feelings show up and my inner child would start to panic because that's not okay. And, all of the things that I dealt with from my own childhood, like it was really motivating for me to think like, my child, when they're older, won't have an inner child showing up with panic when someone around them has a hard feeling, right? Or a big feeling, right? Like just think, like it's very motivating to think about like when you can zoom out and look at the like intergenerational picture, like the healing of the world that we're doing here.
Yes.
This is big, exciting, fun work.
It's exciting and it is big. It's big. It's big. It's big. My daughter says to me, Mum, and she's 21. She said, Mum, I just feel like you're doing all the work. I don't know what work there's. I'm like, oh, darling, buckle up. I will pass the baton to you. I will deal with some of our baggage, but then I will pass it to you, and there will be baggage that I'm not even aware of yet that you'll have to deal with.
It's done. The world is healed. Good work.
There's always going to be stuff because that's what we humans do. We grow.
Yes.
And it's the best thing we do is we grow. It's the most exciting, most important thing is growth. There's always going to be room for growth. We take it to a certain point and then they take it from there. And our job isn't to take it all the way. We don't have to have everything because what we're going to do is take it as far as we can and then they'll take it. But what we will do and what we are doing differently is making sure when they pick up that baton and that baggage and do their work to take it further, that we are making sure they are as strong and as brave as they can possibly be when they do that work, and as open to it. So we want to get rid of any shame. There's no shame in doing this work. It's growth. It's important. So that's one of the things we're doing, is changing the way we can see this. They can see this.
Yes. Okay. When our children experience hard things, as they will, because we're humans in the world, and there is discomfort and pain and all sorts of things that are just a symptom of being alive, what can we do to help them metabolize those really hard experiences so they're less likely to get stuck as trauma?
Yeah. Anything we can do to move the feeling through them. So where it gets stuck is when it gets squashed and pushed down. So what we want to do is, first of all, make space for the feeling. Emotion is emotion, energy in motion. It needs to move through them. And it can move in a number of ways. It can actually move through movement, just letting them move through it. It can move by talking about, writing about, drawing about. So what we want to really do is just make space for the feelings to happen. We don't have to stop it. We don't want to stop it. So let the tears come. Let the big feelings come. Let the anger come. Hold a boundary to make sure they come in ways that don't break them or other people, but we just make space for it to come. The posture we want to give them is, I can handle all of your big feelings. So big feeling away. Just you can feel whatever you feel in front of me. Where we have to think of it like a river. If we try and dam a river and stop a river, it's going to burst its banks. That's what trauma does. We just need to make way for the river to come. So just holding that strong, steady anchor presence. I see you. I'm with you. I don't need to change you right now. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe and to keep other people safe, but I don't need to change what you're feeling right now. And that's the best way we can do it. And afterwards, we might say, do you want to talk about it? They might not want to, and that's okay. But we want to really show them that we're safe to handle it. So sometimes we might talk about the feelings we have. What's important is we don't burden them with it. And we show them that we handled it, that we coped with it. So we might say, I was so cross today when this happened. I was on the road and someone cut me off. I was so cross.
One thing that I noticed is that kids actually have a real intuitive wisdom for what they need when we don't get in the way and dam their river, the flow of their river, right? Like one time we were on a part of this family nature exploration thing in the wilderness, and my son stepped on a wasp's nest, and all of the wasps swirled up and it just were stinging him over and over, and he was running and I'm throwing his clothes up, whatever, it was a whole thing. And for 6 months, he told every single person that he saw the story of what happened. And as with every telling of the story, it was lighter, and there were funny parts in it, and it was there were hero moments, and every time he told it, it got you could just see the healing happening with every retelling. So the Amazon delivery person got to hear the story and the waiter and it felt like it would be so easy to be oh and just, but no, this is exactly what he needed, and thank you, society, for lending a listening ear to let that healing happen. And he's totally fine, not afraid of bees, moved through it just perfectly fine, totally healed from it. And it was just such a great lesson for me when that happened of I really just need to not get in the way and just support the things that they start doing that I can see are helping.
So and I love that, because storytelling, we've been telling stories to deal with hard stuff since the beginning of us. When we tell a story, it actually lets us take another look at the thing that happened, and feel safer while we do it. So your little guy is telling the story of what happened. And every time he does that, he's able to get a little bit closer. He's able to look at it his brain's able to look at it from every angle. And he's able to check it out and completely process it to the point where
that can just be a thing that happened rather than that a thing that always happens when you go out and there's bees around. We can tell the story as well. So that's another thing we can do. If they've been through something traumatic, if we tell the story back in a storytelling voice, it can have the same effect. I was thinking about what happened when we were out that day or when we were yesterday and that bee was there. Oh, and you didn't see it. You were playing, do you remember? And then. And if we say it in a storytelling voice, it lets them come closer. And you'll probably find at some point they'll pick it up. But they're processing it the whole time. Their brains are processing it. That talking about is really important. Yeah. So that's another way we can move it.
Like, I wonder how the wasps told their family the story. What do you think they said?
A beautiful way to do it. Because, again, that's looking at this from another angle and in a way that's not going to be so scary. So he can approach this.
Yes.
Let's just approach hard things. So that's another way to get the energy moving through them. It's a beautiful way to do it.
Yes. And then too, I think because we're going to experience hard things, and while we don't need to put the weight of that on our children, they are in connection with us in this life that we're living. So when my mother died, my children were there and they were a part of the experience. And so for them to see all of the things that I did to try and heal, I didn't put the pain on them, but I also didn't hide it from them. So they could see me going to therapy. Oh, time for my therapy. Or I'm going to take a walk. I'm feeling really heavy today and I need to move some of that heaviness. You want to join me on a walk today? So as I'm doing the things, they, sort of witness that. And I think that just sort of packs a few more things in their toolbox that they can turn to.
Yeah. But they're also seeing that you feel hard things sometimes and you can deal with it. So big feelings, we don't need to avoid them or ignore them. And you're showing them that. I feel really sad today. And I know when I go for a walk, I feel better. So I'm going to go for a walk. I know I can handle it. I feel really anxious today and I know I can handle it. I feel my body just feels angry and annoyed. I know that when I move, I feel better. So that's what I'm going to do to handle this. Yeah. And what we're saying is, so you can come to us with your feelings because we don't shy away from them. We can turn and face them with you and handle them with you.
Yes. Even in small ways. I joined a choir a few weeks ago and I was about to go to the first rehearsal and I was like, anxiety is showing up. I'm feeling a little bit nervous about this. Okay, let me think. Worst thing that happens, I'm going to have a funny story to tell, right? What kind of funny stories might I have to tell, and my kid's like, oh my God, okay, what if, we're walking through these funny things that could happen and laughing about it. So just sort of naturally we feel anxiety at different times in life too. Sometimes it's fun things. Sometimes it's all these different contexts. So to just kind of be open about that. In a way that lets them see how we navigate it, I think can be really valuable.
We have to talk about it because if we don't talk about anger, what happens is they're going to feel it anyway. And that's going to be scary if we don't talk about it. Or if we present it as something dysfunctional or deficient or as a sign of breakage, or if we pathologize it. This is why we have to stop pathologizing anxiety, even for kids where anxiety is so big and so intrusive. We want to support them in being able to be with it, but also recognize that they can still do hard things even when they're anxious. That is what eases the discomfort of anxiety, not pushing it away or turning away from it, but showing them that they can feel anxious and brave. They don't need to stop the hard things because of anxiety. They'll want to, but they don't have to. But the problem is the more we avoid feelings or the things that trigger feelings, the bigger the feelings get. And that's when they start to be really intrusive.
Yes, to do it scared. And when I got home, because my kids are used to that, we sit down at the beginning of each season and we talk about things we want to try and do and experiences we want to have. And that's sort of our decision-making point. And then we follow through and we do them. And after the experience, we talk about what did we like about it? What do we not like? What did we learn about ourselves through it? Do we want to do it again or not? Right. But we have that collaboration at the end of it so that anxiety, there's no avoidance anxiety, sort of escape hatch. And so when I got home from that choir rehearsal, my kids were like, okay, what'd you learn? Are we staying in it? Which was, I love that. I'm like, yes, we can do it scared. And then we learn through it and make adjustments and how we want to move forward.
And that's such an important lesson for them. And if you didn't talk about how anxious you were, it would have potentially squandered a really precious opportunity for them to see that just because you're anxious doesn't mean you have to not do things, doesn't mean you have to avoid things. So you gave them this really beautiful experience of, oh my goodness, I feel so anxious and I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to get the job done anyway. And they're able to see that, which is going to open the way for them to do the same, which is what we need to do with anxiety.
Yes. So everybody out there listening, do it scared and out loud.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. The show notes can be found at sagefamily.com/podcast92, where you can also subscribe and get future show notes sent right to your inbox. So what, Karen, are your favorite resources for people to dive deeper into this topic?
Yes. So Hey Warrior, it's the one, and I'm not saying it because I wrote it. I'm saying it because I wrote it because I do believe that understanding what anxiety is, where it comes from, why it feels the way it does is foundational for supporting kids with anxiety. We've got to get the anxiety about the anxiety away from them. Yeah. And my website, Hey Sigmund, has lots of articles on it for free about anxiety as well.
Yes. So her website for sure. Like I said, that's how I initially found her. Her books, Hey Warrior, the first one is adorable. You even have a little stuffy guy now, which is so cute. My kids are like older and I'm like, is it weird if I just buy the stuffy for me? It's so cute. So definitely her book, Hey Warrior, is amazing. And you have some other books too, right?
I do. So I have Hey Awesome, which is also about anxiety, but Hey Warrior, if you're just going to get one, is the important one. Hey Awesome is the strengths of an anxious brain. So we want kids, anxiety can tell a deficiency story. You're not good enough, brave enough, strong enough, smart enough. So we push against that with Hey Awesome. Dear You Love from Your Brain is neuroscience, all about big feelings, big behavior, why it's hard to do new things sometimes, how habits happen, all that sort of thing. It is about anxiety in there. But We're Not Lions is about social resilience. And my new one, which is coming, is you talked about polyvagal before. It's polyvagal for kids. It's called Ups and Downs. So it's all about how our brains and bodies work to take care of us. And it talks about the different states of the nervous system. So we're good, and then we go into fight, flight, and what a free state's like. But it does it really playfully using the amygdala. So we shine the light on feelings, and we make feelings feel less scary. And it just talks about why we feel the feelings we do and how we can manage them, how we can come back from big feelings, why big feelings happen, how to make sure we can have big feelings and not do things that get us into trouble. And that'll be here early November.
Yes. Yeah. These are all the books that all the therapists buy for their kids. Let me tell you, like every birthday party with all my therapist friends, it's like every kid gets the Hey Warrior books. And yes. So it's definitely, these books are definitely books that you want to have in your, your little collection on your shelf, give them as gifts. And when you have questions, definitely go to Karen's website because it's such a wealth of information about all of this. So Karen, thank you so much for coming here and having this conversation with me and for being so wonderful. Never meet your heroes, but you do not disappoint. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.